All right, y'all. Before we dive in, a quick heads up.
This show is raw, real, and definitely not rated PG.
We're talking about adult themes, sexual content, and the kind of stuff you probably don't want blasting through your speakers at work or around your kids.
So grab some headphones, pour your drink of choice, and get comfy.
Oh, and just so we're clear, we are not licensed therapists, counselors, or sex coaches. Sex coaches,
Sex coaches.
not sex couches.
We're just a couple of people sharing our lives experiences and sexy adventures and ethical non-monogamy. So with that, pull up a chair and enjoy the show.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Beyond Monogamy. I'm Adam.
And I'm Pris.
And today, we've actually got a very special guest. You may not actually recognize him, but you may recognize the company that he works for. Our guest today is Paul Keable. He is the Chief Strategy Officer of Ashley Madison. And yeah, that Ashley Madison. I think you know who I'm talking about.
Now, before we dive in, let's be super clear. We don't condone cheating or shady, unethical behavior. That's not what we're about. And that's not what the lifestyle's about either.
Exactly. What we do love, though, is how a platform like Ashley Madison actually gives people who aren't monogamous a discreet and safe way to connect and explore on their own terms.
That's right. And Paul's been leading the charge and shifting on how people think about intimacy, desire, and alternative relationship styles. He's got insight into how society views non-monogamy, how tech is changing the way people connect, and where the whole conversation is heading in the future.
So buckle up because this is going to be a fun one. Paul, welcome to Beyond Monogamy.
Chris, Adam, thank you so much for having me today. That was a great introduction.
And just so you know, I have massive ADHD. I take my medication early, so it's gone.
That's right. So she's going to have several squirrel moments.
Yes.
She's good at that.
Sorry.
Now, you are, of course, the Chief Strategy Officer for Ashley Madison. Now, I'm curious, what does that entail exactly? What is that?
I work for an amazingly cool company in a lot of different ways, and I personally think I have one of the greatest jobs because I get to dive into all aspects of modern relationships from a whole bunch of different perspectives. And let me tell you what that means. One of my biggest parts of my jobs is doing this, sitting down with people like you, trying to help people understand what's going on behind the scenes, not just at Ashley Madison, but specifically in the world of non-monogamy and adultery, because so much of what we've come to understand and believe about these spaces is influenced by religion and government and family, and it's built on a lot of bad intel, a lot of bad data. And so, we have more than 85 million members who have joined our site since we've launched. So I've got a lot of that good data. But one of the things I find fascinating that I get to do in my job is I work with academics around the world who want to study the nature of monogamy and non-monogamy and adultery, because it's really hard to do that in the traditional ways, because in a Gen Pop survey, people lie. People lie to themselves about the nature of their non-monogamous activities. But if you've joined Ashley Madison, you're sort of giving the thing away a little bit. You've clearly indicated you're interested in this space. So you're going to be a little bit more truthful. And we've got a lot of that amazing data. So I work with academics, I work with our members, I go and talk to media around the world to help people understand what's going on, not to convince you to come join my site, but to help you better understand what's going on and why we still exist so many years later. I mean, we're 23 years old now? It's amazing.
23 years old for Ashley Madison. Now, for those of our listeners who are not familiar with Ashley Madison is a website that, would you say they promote cheating, essentially, in a way? Is that
so?
Is
our
that,
tagline is no. Our tagline is "Life is short, have an affair." We are the world's #1 married dating app. Full stop. And that means a lot of things to a lot of different people. At our core, though, ultimately is we offer discretion to like-minded adults to explore their definitions of monogamy.
Oh, I like that. Their definitions of monogamy. Because what I've noticed is we used to refer to this as ethical non-monogamy to consensual non-monogamy, because a lot of people said that ethics is different from person to person. So everybody's living their truth, and that could be different from person to person, assuming ethics is just different for everybody. So we like the blanket term of just non-monogamy. Ashley Madison, and I'll be very honest with you, I wasn't too excited at first about the thought of having an Ashley Madison representative on, and no offense to you personally.
I won't take that personally.
But I did have to do my research, and I have heard throughout the lifestyle community that it has been a very good platform for people who are non-monogamous and trying to be discreet, because discretion is big in this lifestyle.
Yeah, I actually was on your site when we were poly, and that was going to be an area where I was going to delve in and find a partner when we had opened up our marriage to the poly universe.
Yeah, we
I
were
think I
poly for
dabbled in
about
it for a
5
bit.
years.
It's a really cool site, but I did have, before that, I was skeptical. I was like, no, I don't think I want to get on this site.
And see, for sites like that, I always found it easier for women on sites like that. As a guy, I'm always afraid of bots and fake accounts and that sort of thing. And so I never even went to it, I'll be honest with you.
But it is a good site. I've actually been on there.
Well, I appreciate your patronage.
Yeah, there you go. So I will say Ashley Madison is doing some great things as far as the non-monogamous lifestyle is concerned. A lot of us in the lifestyle really try to stay away from the cheating thought or ideal, because we're already looked upon in the vanilla world as cheaters. You know what I mean? People look at us and they go, you guys are just cheating on each other. You're just doing it out in the open. There's a very negative stain that we're given in this lifestyle. So I just find it really interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting because I joined Ashley Madison back in 2013, and we were very, very much, as we are today, to a degree, rooted in marital infidelity, adultery. That's our marketing, that's our tagline. But at the core of our business, what we really offer, and you sort of hit on this, is discretion. We created a place that has discrete tools to allow you to utilize the site so the world doesn't see what you're doing, versus the traditional dating apps where you have to put everything else about yourself out there, all your visuals, and it's not really predicated on discretion. And that's great for those spaces. And what's fascinating about that is because of the discretion that Ashley offers, over the past 6 or 7 years, we've been tracking this. About 20% of our members would indicate that they are what we call disclosed non-monogamous, meaning their partners are aware, if not participating in their actions on Ashley Madison. So just as you were talking about, Pris, you were using it to, explore poly. And we have people who come to our site for that very reason, because often it's later in life. And we have data, particularly from Dr. Wednesday Martin, if you know her, that suggests that it's women who tire of monogamy earlier than men, and it's often women who lead relationships, monogamous relationships, into a non-monogamous space because of their interest in it. It's not male-led, which is what a lot of people want to believe. And if you start that journey later in life, post 35, post 40, and you've got a bit of a career, you got kids, you've got family and neighbors, you don't necessarily want them to be aware of it, because you don't know how far you're going to, take this journey. And the discretion that we have offered in the like-minded community of people who, similarly are looking for these types of activities and people, makes us a very viable and enticing platform. And I think that is really what's been driving our success for the past 10-ish years, quite frankly.
Yeah, no, that makes sense for
Yeah,
sure.
and the lifestyle itself, we've always said, is a woman-led,
Yes.
woman-centric
Yeah.
lifestyle.
Especially at that age. So at that age, personally, your hormones change. We're going through menopause. We're getting a little older. We want to change it up.
Yeah.
It's a midlife crisis, but not a crisis.
My lifestyle would not exist had it not been for her. I owe all of this, and I enjoy the lifestyle. I'm enjoying myself 100%. And it's because she says it's okay. So I have no problem saying
What's
it.
really amazing also was within that space, it's a very self-regulating community. And what I mean by that, if a man thinks that he can convince, cajole, or worse, force his female partner to join him in this space under pressure or duress, the community's going to figure that out real quickly.
Oh, yeah.
And you're just not going to have any partners to play with, simply because they'll pick up on that vibe. It's one of the most authentic and honest group of people when it comes to relationships and meeting new partners, because of the requirements of being open to yourself first and foremost, and then to your primary partner, because otherwise it all falls apart. Because one of the myths that people don't get is jealousy and those feelings still exist within the lifestyle or a polyamorous
Yes.
relationship, but they utilize their communication tools to ensure, or at least attempt to, push those to the side or deal with them in a really mature and open way. And it's interesting enough when people ask me all the time, like, how do you avoid your spouse getting on Ashley Madison? I'm like, it's not that complicated, quite frankly, from a cheating perspective, that is. Listen and talk honestly. Like,
Yeah.
those two pieces of advice would save far more marriages than anything else. But the reality is, it's not happening. My business is going to continue to be successful, but nonetheless, I'll come out here and explain it to people once again.
I was going to say, don't say that
Yeah.
because, yeah, Ashley Madison will no longer exist
Yeah.
if people knew
Well,
how to communicate.
I was having this conversation with someone recently about why is it my partner will go and confess their interest in often an intimate space to a stranger, but not to me. And I said, it's actually pretty simple, the reason why. If I was to turn to my 20+ year partner and confess that I have an interest in a particular intimate space, something kinky, what doesn't matter what it is.
Mhm.
And if they were to turn to me and say, "Oh my God, Paul, you're a disgusting pervert," and shame me, the rejection would be far more damaging than if I was go to a stranger and confess the same interest, and that person's like, "Oh, I'm not into that, you're weird." I don't care what that person says, so it doesn't hurt me as much.
Yeah.
That is why so much of this communication doesn't happen within primary relationships, and people go exploring elsewhere because they don't feel safe enough to express that to their partner. So if you're wondering if your partner's interested in different spaces, you've got to create an environment, not only that where you believe it's safe for them to confess to you or communicate with you, but you need to express it in a way that it's really clear to them that regardless of what it is they're interested in, you're not going to judge them. You may not necessarily agree to do it, and that's okay, but you're not going to point fingers and shame them.
Yeah. No,
For
that's very
sure.
true.
For
That's
sure. I
very
love
true.
that.
On a really quick, on a personal side, you're monogamous, right? That's what I
Yeah,
read.
I'm
I
a
was like, yeah.
traditional, modern, romantic, monogamous person.
Okay. Okay. So that's not what drew you to Ashley Madison. It was just something else. Like,
No, not at all. I mean, I am separated now,
yeah.
but I was in a 20+ year, beautiful monogamous relationship and never had any of these types of issues. We're on to different chapters in our lives, and we've had a lot of great learnings from that, a lot of great learnings from my job. But no, yeah, I'm still a traditional romantic
Yeah.
monogamist.
So you never dabble in there just because now you're single. You don't ever get on there and be like, I could find somebody here.
I think convincing a single person to just want to spend time with me is a hard enough gambit, quite frankly.
Totally understand. Yeah. And that's why I have lots of Adams.
There's
There
only
you go.
there's only
Perfect.
one Adam. Let me tell you that. Do friends and family ever raise an eyebrow when they hear where you work? Like, how do you usually explain it to people who don't get it?
Oh, it's funny. I've never had to be worried about that. My friends all, love the job that I have because they're always fascinated in hearing about it. Some of my golf friends' wives may not enjoy it quite as much as they do.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But no, I've never, had a negative interaction in my social life because of my job. Quite frankly, what I find interesting when I go to parties or events of some nature and, suddenly somebody discovers that I'm that guy, they'll sidle up to me at the bar and they're like, "Oh, do you really work for Ashley Madison?" I'm like, "Yeah, I do." And is it real? Does it work? And I'm like, "Yeah, it does." And people are curious.
Of
People want to
course.
know, what's happening behind the scenes. Like, why does a married mother of two join Ashley Madison? That doesn't make sense to so many people. And I'm like, well, buckle up. I can tell you the answer to that question, and it's probably not what you think it is.
Well,
It's very true.
I figured that there's a post Ashley Madison Paul and a pre Ashley Madison Paul.
Oh God, yeah.
I'm assuming that the pre Ashley Madison Paul maybe had different ideals about non-monogamy than you do now. Has working with non-monogamy and that community changed your views on that community?
Hugely. Like everything that I've got to understand about not just non-monogamy, but relationships, period, have fundamentally changed because I've such a deeper understanding, both through the academic work that I've done, but most importantly, through the conversations I've had with the hundreds, if not thousands of my members that I've spoken to over the years, hearing their stories, hearing what they came looking for, what drove them to our site, and what they got out of it. And the range of stories is so wild to me. And I swear every other week I'll say, I've heard it all. There's nothing new. And my team will come to me, Paul, we got a new member. You're gonna want to hear this story. And I'm like, holy moly, that's a new one. And it ranges from the salacious for sure to the deeply heartwarming to the deeply heartbreaking and everything in between. And I think that anecdotal, real life experience that comes through the members is, if anything, throws the judgment that people have about people who join Ashley Madison away, or should, because it's so nuanced.
Yeah.
It's so much more than what you think it is, even when, it is a strictly adulterous type activity. There's so much more to that. And I wish people would have understanding, because if you did, more than likely, quite frankly, my business probably wouldn't need to be around, because you would talk about it in a better way. But like I've said, and I'll continue to say, I don't think that's changing anytime soon.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think I got a job for a little bit longer.
I think so. Yeah. Yeah. So, like, you've talked to a lot of people. What's the biggest surprise that you've learned about people through working with Ashley Madison?
So one of the studies that I found most eye-opening was, we had a researcher come to us from the University of Missouri a few years back, Dr. Alicia Walker, and she was really interested in studying, why do women cheat versus why do men cheat? Because we're told very different stories, particularly from a Hollywood perspective. The man is always the executive with a super high libido, no morals, and he just wants to sleep with the hot intern in the office. Well, sure, that certainly happens, but that's not the be all and end all. And so she does this study, and it's unpaid for. So we're not guiding this. We let her free reign, as it were. And the results flip the script. 80% of the women who joined Ashley Madison were in sexless or orgasm-less marriages. They were seeking a pathway to maintain their primary relationship. The vast majority would tell them, I love my husband, I love my family, I want nothing to change. But at age 30, 40, 50, I'm not willing to live another 10, 15, 30 years in a unsatisfactory sex life.
Yeah.
And fellas, trust me when I tell you, this is a real thing.
Oh, it is.
And
it is. It is.
They're right there.
And I can get into in a bit about why that is, because I think, people need to understand, why is it? Because so many guys will say, well, that's not my wife's problem, she's as happy as can be. And I got bad news for you guys, that's probably not true. But what was really eye-opening was the male side of the study. The majority of men were coming for emotional validation. They were not necessarily seeking out a physical act in and of itself. It often manifests in that way. And what I tell the women I speak to in my social circles, I'm like, remember to tell Bob that he looks really good in that shirt you like. And they're like, why? Because we're geared in Western culture, from a heterosexual relationship standpoint, to deliver aesthetic compliments to our female partners all the time. Oh, Pris, your hair looks really nice tonight. I like the way that dress looks on you, so on and so forth. That's normal. Men don't get those comments back regularly, because we're supposed to be stoic. We're supposed to be the man of the house. We're supposed to be the providers. But turns out we're very similar to women. We want that validation. We want to be wanted. We want to be desired. So men who feel they're not getting that in their primary relationship will show up on Ashley simply because that's what they're missing. They might still be getting sex at home, but they're not getting
The fulfillment.
feeling, that fulfillment, that emotion, the psychological piece. So everyone says, oh, women cheat because they're emotional and irrational. And that's misogyny. It's just not true. They want sex, but it turns out they want really good sex. And men want to be wanted.
Yeah.
And when you start to understand that, if you dive into, okay, let me really understand it, because so many people will like pshaw and say, you're crazy, that's not true. And I say, well, hold on, think about it from this perspective. In Western culture, particularly your country, I'm Canadian, sex education is abysmal, particularly when it comes to the female side of things. At best, we'll tell you how to have safe sex so you don't get pregnant and don't get an STD. Okay, that's good. It's a good start. I'm Gen X, so I'm a little bit older. My kids are getting a sex education that tells them about consent. Okay, great. Having communication, agreeing to what's cool and not cool within the bedrooms. But what we never tell kids when they're learning about sex, particularly women, is what's good sex? How do you have good sex? How does your body work? We're basically leaving women to figure it out. And the downside is that it's often then at that stage of life, male led, and they're getting their education, unfortunately, from pornography, which great form of entertainment, not a sex education tool. And women don't discover often their sexual, happy spot, as it were, often until their 30s, if not 40s. And then suddenly these conversations do start coming out and men get all freaked out. Oh my God, I've been on a stud for the past 20 years in this relationship. And now you're saying I'm not good. And she's like, actually, no, you never were. But it's not really your fault. So let's just talk about it. I'm not blaming you, but men's ego gets in the way, so on and so forth. So that is my belief, one of the biggest root causes to why so many marriages do end up having infidelity show up in them, because we at the beginning of time, beginning of our sexual journeys, we're not given any good instruction as to how to do it. We're left to our own devices. And quite frankly, there's nothing else in our lives that we do that with. We go to driver's lessons, we go to cooking school, we go to school to learn all these other different subjects, but no one's teaching us how to have good sex.
That is so true.
Yeah. Well, there's workshops, but they cost.
They do cost, yeah. I used to cheat with my first husband. Adam is number 3. So I
Yeah.
did do a lot of cheating. I was with him when I was like really young, and we both just cheated on each other. And I will tell you that definitely the sex was better with the person I was cheating with than the one I was married to. And I tried to explain that, but he was just one of those machismos that just was like, you can't use a toy. It has to be me. And so a lot of faking went into that. So
And that's a great example. I
yeah.
think the stat is less than 20% of women will achieve orgasm from penis and vagina sex.
Yeah.
And men, trust me when I tell you this, toys are not your competition. They are your best friends. Why do you want to work so damn hard to not get a good result?
Thank you.
And you know what's, Paul?
Like,
I will tell you that statistic. I literally just mentioned that on our last show.
did,
It's actually 18%.
It's 18%.
Yeah.
and that's just anatomy. That's not about skill set. That's not about your size or all the other, things men are freaked out about. Guys, trust me when I tell you, for whatever reason, our anatomies weren't built right for penis and vagina sex for the women. They still enjoy it, but they're not going to get an orgasm. So you got to look at it a different way. And the other part of it is, like I said before, if the woman doesn't know, which is quite possible if you're really young, because you haven't had experience, you haven't explored, you haven't been taught, then you got to get vulnerable. You got to open up the conversation. And yes, you can use pornography as a tool then to say, what do you think about that? What do you think about that? But you got to talk about it. Just don't flip her upside down and do some crazy thing on her without her knowing, because trust me, that's going to go really poorly too for you.
Yes, that is so true.
Now, Paul, I've been looking forward to asking this question for a little bit, because this is a fun
This is
question.
a fun question.
Now,
Okay, good.
If you had to describe your job at a cocktail party without using the words cheating or affairs, how would you put it?
Wow. Putting me on the spot.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, man, you've been on a lot of podcasts, and this is one question you have not been asked.
I am a conduit to understanding why so many misconceptions exist around monogamy and modern relationships.
Man.
And my job ultimately is to deliver you the insights that I've gained, plus from my organization, to help you understand, not to tell you what to do, but to give you enough information to make a better decision about what you want to do.
Paul,
That was
Paul,
a great answer.
You're an incredible oratorian.
Speaker.
No,
I
it's
think my kids say I'm a good bullshit artist, but we'll go with your version. I like yours a lot better.
So I was going to say that you men just have that little skill. It just goes in there.
not,
It's
not
like-
everybody, but yeah, you got. Let me tell
I'm
you,
really good bullshitter.
you-
I'm going to say.
A monogamous man selling non-monogamy is like a vegan selling meat. It's just incredible
I
what you're
love it.
doing. But there's a
Yeah, but I think to that point though, I actually don't believe that I'm selling non-monogamy. And I know that's a bit of a semantical argument, but I'm not trying to convince you that non-monogamy is better. I think monogamy is beautiful. Obviously, that's my pathway,
Sure.
but I also think non-monogamy is equally beautiful. It's not about which one's right or wrong. What I don't believe is that monogamy should be the default. I don't believe we should just arbitrarily fall into that trap or into that space without questioning, why am I here? The
Sure.
whole idea of the white picket fence and happily ever after is beautiful and works for so many people, but it doesn't work for a lot of people. Why? And then also, why does non-monogamy, why is it growing? Why is there such an increased level of interest? And I know the media and the government, and particularly religions, will tell you it's just because they're a bunch of unethical, horny people who just want to have sex all the time. And I'm like,
Heathens.
I don't think that's the case. It's not the case. It's not the case by any stretch of the imagination. It's people who have just decided I'm more comfortable with this. It gives me the options in the way that I want. And it also reflects on one of the weaknesses of monogamy. We are now in a world where we ask, if you're in a monogamous relationship, for my partner to be my best friend, my lover, my financial partner, often my co-parent, my social partner, my travel partner, my this and that. You are everything to me. And dear God, I'm a lot by myself. To be all that for me, that's a huge burden for one person to take on.
Oh,
For
that's very
sure.
true.
For
Yeah.
sure.
So, how does Ashley Madison protect discretion and privacy in ways traditional
Ooh.
dating apps don't?
Yeah, that's a great question. So number one, you log into most traditional dating apps and it's an aesthetic-based app. I don't care which widget or feature you have on there. People are aesthetically based for the most part. So I'm looking, is she pretty? And if she's looking at me, he's like, is he moderately acceptable? And I understand that. Most of the profiles in Ashley Madison will not have a face picture on their profile because a lot of them are there cheating. So of course they're not going to do that. So number one, you're going to be reading more than you're going to be looking. But there are pictures because it's ultimately we can't move off the fact that I need to be physically attracted to you at some point. So most of our members put their pictures in their private lockers. And so for sake of argument, if Chris and I had met on the site and we were communicating, I would send her a key to my private locker that she could see my more intimate photos, particularly my face. And if she said, like, listen, you are no good, that conversation ends, I can revoke that key. She can't screen cap my pictures, and she now no longer has any access to my folder. So that's one of the things. And obviously we have discrete billing so that Ashley Madison doesn't show up on your credit card bill. All those different functions you can hide. If you have an iPhone, you have stealth mode, so you can hide the app on your phone. So there's a variety of tools
Wow.
that allow it. But the biggest thing that really creates the sphere of discretion is the members themselves. It's the idea that we're all here looking for something that's not in our lives, or we want to bring it into our lives, but we don't want the rest of the world knowing. And it's really important for people to understand it's not based out of shame. It's more based out of it's none of your goddamn business who or how I date. And so what I do and who I do it with is none of your business unless I invite you into it. So it's invitation to my desire, not shame of my interests, that keeps this community going. Because listen, I'm sure you'll get into it. We've been through some ups and downs over the years. There's been a few
Yes.
things
Oh,
that have
yeah.
happened to us that aren't so great, apparently.
Yes.
Right.
So in understanding that, it's the community that propels us forward in 10 plus years. That's what really drives it forward, because people hold the trust, because they're there for the same things. And so whether you're looking for a traditional affair, or you're looking to open up your relationship, or you're just exploring, a particular interest, a kink, people are there looking for the same things. And we've enabled that type of communication to happen in a really great way.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
y'all really have.
Now, I will say that you've got access to a massive amount of user data and trends. What do the numbers tell us about the state of monogamy and non-monogamy in 2025?
Well, I think one of the stats that I think people need to see is that disclosed non-monogamy. So whether that's open relationships, people in the lifestyles, polyamorous relationships. So if you're in a completely vanilla relationship and you have no clue about any of these terms, just understand that with under the umbrella of non-monogamy, there is a massive spectrum of ways to embrace it and live it. They're not all the same. They're very different for very different reasons. Like even polyamory has a whole umbrella of different styles within that. And one of the things I've learned is the massive increase of that particular space, the disclosed non-monogamous, the people who are saying monogamy doesn't work for us, for our relationship, but we love each other and we love each other so much we trust each other enough to open up this relationship and go on this incredible journey. And what people really have to understand is that yes, sex is a big part of it, but it's not the be all and end all. And when you get into this space, more often than not, the reason you continue in it is not because you get to some really cool, fun, intimate experiences, but you get to meet some really cool, interesting people on an intimate level. And I mean friends and conversations and a community that understands you, that doesn't judge you. And that is why people who join, whether it's the lifestyle or, open the relationship, the continuation of that is because of the people they meet, not because of the sex they're having, or very rarely is that the case, in my opinion. So I think that part, and I think it's going to grow exponentially over the next couple decades.
No, I can definitely see that. So it's not more of a hookup space. It's more, do you actually see
Right.
people like finding long-term relationships, meaningful
Oh my God,
connections?
yeah.
Yeah?
I've
Okay.
had members who have come through the traditional route of having an adulterous affair,
Hmm.
and they realize that, you know what, my affair partner is my life mate. And so they both got divorced and then they got married, and that didn't work out because it turned out monogamy was the issue for them. And so then they both came back together in an open relationship on Ashley Madison. So I've had that story. So I've had multiple marriages. I've had people come and go. I'll tell you my favorite story though.
Oh.
And I tell this story quite a bit because I think she's just such an amazing person. Her name's Bobby Goldman. And I can tell you that because she's already publicly outed herself. She was a married woman. She was married to a tier A Hollywood producer. She had a number of her own businesses, so she was financially successful in her own right, but she lived this great, adventurous life. And then unfortunately, her husband passed away. She's in her 60s, I think. And her therapist turns to her and says, listen, Bobby, you're depressed. You need to get laid. And she's like, holy shit, you're right. So she signs up to a bunch of the traditional dating apps, and all the guys her age are looking for someone to make them a sandwich and fold their clothes. That's not what Bobby needs. So Bobby signs up to Ashley Madison, and she goes on this incredible journey. And at one point, I think she was dating up to 7 different married men. She meets some of their wives, and their wives are like, thank God you're around. I'm done with that part of my life, but I'm so happy he's still able to get it. And this is where I think, where I just love Bobby. She ends up writing an off-Broadway play called The Curvy Widow because that was her username on the platform.
Oh my goodness, I've actually heard of that. I didn't know the story behind it though.
That's the
Yeah.
story behind The Curvy Widow. And I think it's beautiful
Wow.
because there's a woman like she was doing this into her 70s. And that's another thing that people have to get really comfortable with, that sex continues for a really long time. And so if you're having bad sex at 30, trust me, it's not going to get any better unless you have these conversations
Amen.
and
Yep.
open yourself. And you need to. And when you do, oh my dear God, it's just mind blowing. And people are like, really? Can it be any better? I'm like, if you ask that question, you really need help. You might need to join.
Yes, let's sign you up. I'm 47. Adam is younger than me. He's 43.
43. Yeah.
And I will tell you that our sex has gotten better over the years. And it is because of the communication and telling him what I want and what I like. And so besides the other partners, it is fun to have sex with him. So
My sex has always been great.
it is, yeah.
She's pretty much at the same level we started at. It's just always been great.
Well.
But I'm very easy. Paul, from a strategic standpoint, how would you say you keep the brand relevant and approachable when its reputation can be somewhat controversial?
So I think, you have to look at the different phases of our existence. And I think for the first 13, 14 years, we were on a meteor rise, and we were a bit of a shock and awe brand because, we were so unexpected. We were so brazen, and that was who we were. We were bold and shocking. And, we threw up crazy billboards. We put out crazy contests. We were sponsors on the Howard Stern show. And that was part of the culture. That was part of our rise. And we had to do some reflection coming out of the events of 2015. And part of that was a recognition that we'd grown past that stage. We were no longer the unruly teenager. We were a mature adult now. We needed to act accordingly. We had millions and millions of members. We had so many people still coming through the doors. but we needed to ensure that the business was going to be successful, on a longer path. And so we've leaned more into the discretion in talking to people about why you want that, not as an act of shame, but more as an act of ownership. I'm going to do what I want to do, and it's none of your damn business what I do unless I invite you into it again. We've leaned into understanding and an insight. So we're working more and more with our members, with our external partners, to validate why this phenomena happens, because I believe we are probably one of the only truly global dating apps, because traditional singles dating is very, very different from culture to culture. I was in India last fall, and arranged relationships, arranged marriages are still a very big part of that culture. But cheating, infidelity is universal around the world. It happens in every religion, every economic level, every ethnicity. It doesn't matter. It always happens, and it's basically the same. I think, quite frankly, the only country we don't really do well in is France, because it's already baked into the culture. They
Right.
accept it. They expect it. It's totally cool so long as you have discretion. So that's the biggest change, I think. And as you see our brand evolve over the next 2, 3, 4 years, you're going to see more of that focus on discretion than you are on life is short, have an affair, quite frankly.
Okay. Okay. Non monogamy is becoming more visible in pop culture. Shows, podcasts like ours, even celebrities have been talking about it a lot. Do you think that mainstream society is catching up to what Ashley Madison users have been doing for years?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, if you think about it, specifically, again, in our origins from an infidelity standpoint, people love that storyline. Our favorite movies, our favorite TV shows, they all have that baked in at some point. There's very few popular shows or movies, over the course of history that, deal with relationships that somehow don't involve that in some way, shape, or form. And we love to hear about it. We love to fantasize it. And it's a storyline because it's misunderstood. And that's where Hollywood has created this idea of what people think it is, when it's not that at all. I think the shift that we're seeing now about more and more people embracing non-monogamy, meaning the lifestyle, polyamory, open relationships, it's being driven, in my opinion, from the younger generation. And because I put it this way, so I'm really old compared to you very young people. I'm in my 50s.
You look great.
And oh, thank you very much. Growing up, I was a typical teenager, and, absolutely, fascinated with sex, and all I wanted to do was have it with anybody, any woman who would even let me get anywhere near. I wasn't very successful, but it was interesting. In high school, every guy's saying they're having sex, and everybody's talking about, oh, my girlfriend at the other high school. The point being is that we talked about sex a lot, but people were lying through their teeth. Nobody was having nearly as much sex as you thought they were having. And a lot of the acts of sex and the notion around sex was based on pressure and shame and all these not really good things that created a lot of problems in how men particularly, viewed women at that stage of life. What's flipped now is, I have an 18-year-old son who's about to go off to university, is their generation has grown up in a completely digital, transparent world where they've had so much more access to who's doing what, when, where, and how, that there's a level of transparency that they see that people aren't really having as much sex as has been alluded to in the past. And they're saying, that's cool, but I don't care. I'm going to have sex the way I want to have sex. I'm not going to feel the pressure that previous generations did, but I'm not going to be driven to have it out of a, oh my God, if I'm still a virgin at 18 or 19 or 20, they don't feel that pressure. And they're choosing to do it on their own terms without the shame or guilt. But what I'm starting to see, and this is where the traditional dating apps, I believe, are starting to have some challenges from a financial perspective, is we're getting to the point where we're a little tired of living our lives completely open online. It's been 20 years of social media where everything about us is online. There's a digital footprint of everything I've done for 20 years somewhere out there. And people are saying, you know what? I don't want that. I don't want to have all that. Not because I'm ashamed of it. It's just nobody's business. And they're slipping into the DMs on social medias because that way they can avoid pain, because kids can't get jobs these days anyways. And they're doing it within their social circles. So they're doing what I did in my 20s, just in a different space. So I'd go to the bar, see a cute girl, I'd wink at her, I'd go try to buy her a drink, and ultimately go home alone. They're slipping into the girls' DMs that they know within their social circles. Hey, I met you at the party. I'd love to see if you like to go out with me, one at a time that's convenient or whatever. So they're basically saying the shame and the judgment that happened previously didn't help any of you guys because you're all still getting divorced. So we're going to come at it from a different perspective, but we don't want everyone knowing about it because it's none of your business. So I think that shift is going to change the way online dating as an industry unfolds. And I think it's going to be a real boon if Ashley Madison evolves in that way to address that interest. Discretion that unlocks desire without having the shame or guilt associated with it.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what do you think scares people most about the idea of non-monogamy?
Well, I think it's a double-edged sword. Men, again, I really fundamentally believe that so much of the issues with modern relationships boil down to toxic male fragility. Because men can't, they get this idea of, oh my God, another man's penis is going to touch my wife. That's impossible. I'm like,
Yeah.
well, was she a virgin? Would she met you? Well, no. So then what does it matter? What's the difference? Well, I'm like, you're getting in your head over something that's widely irrelevant. And if you look at it on a timeline perspective, at a certain point, my parents, the boomer generation, they believed, I don't think they lived it, but not parents specifically, but the generation, they believed that premarital sex was a horrible idea. And that if a woman did that, she was tainted. So that didn't happen. Let's just say for sake of argument, it didn't happen. And then we've moved to my generation where premarital sex was kind of the norm. I think we're at a point now where premarital sex is expected because very few people want to get married and have to train their partner from a sexual perspective. They want them to come a little bit more ready-made. And so that evolution is leading us to, okay, so then if my partner was having sex before me with other men, if not potentially multiple men, what's the downside of that happening now? So that's the big hurdle I think a lot of men have to get over, that fear of that. And then equally on the male side, I think a lot of men are terrified because they know women have an easier time getting access to sex than men do.
That's
Full
true.
stop.
Oh,
I
yeah.
don't care how good looking you are, guy.
Yeah.
And because so many, like I talked about this with my golf buddies, and so many of them like originally thought like, oh, guys love open relationships. They can sleep with anybody they want to go. Please. And like as if it's that easy
Try
just to
it.
pick up a date. I'm like, get over yourself. It's not like that. Women are still discerning in the lifestyle. And so it's not just open your legs and they're just going to, drop trowel and go with you. You got to work at it. You got to create relationships and bonds and all that good stuff. For women, I think that the hurdle is the societal judgments that come. You're a whore, you're a slut. It's the Madonna whore complex thing thrown at them constantly. And they're afraid to go to their partner to say it because they don't want their partner judging them. And they're afraid to go into the community because then if they get caught or they get seen, and I'm like, you're only going to get caught by others who are there already. But again, that fear of the unknown is what's driving so many of those things. That's why it's great to have podcasts like yours to show that it is not that, dark, seedy thing that you think it is. And there's just really normal people exploring the boundaries of monogamy in a really great way. And you get to define it. It's a choose your own adventure story. And I think that also can be a bit daunting. Is if I don't know what I don't know, how do I know how to choose? And I'm like, yeah, you got to go explore. And again, that's why I think so many people come to our site, because you can just start talking to people. And before doing anything, you don't have to meet anybody. You can chat, determine like, how far do I want to take this? And I think a lot of women are making that choice because it creates an element of security that I can go out. They don't know who I am yet, but I can have really intimate discussions about how this works. And in doing so, they discover like what tickles their fancy. It's like, ooh, I didn't even think about that. And then, oh my God, now they might try that act with her husband. And then he's like, well, why don't I get to try this with somebody else? Why don't you? And so on and so forth. And that's how that journey often happens.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, going back to your first point, have you ever heard the phrase OPP in the non-monogamous lifestyle?
Well, again, I will show my age. OPP comes from a great
I
song.
was like,
Well, yeah,
yeah.
no, we all know that. And if that's you showing your age, then forget it. Don't carbon date me. But
Well, it was probably classic rap by the time it got to you.
that's right. No, that was fresh, my man. That was fresh. Now, OPP in the non-monogamous lifestyle actually is called one penis policy. And it's a very toxic way of thinking that couples will go into the lifestyle and the man is basically saying, my penis is the only penis for her. It's a one penis policy. She can have fun with women, but she's not allowed to have fun with other men. And I can have fun with other women as well. And so it's a thing. And we first heard about it when we became poly, and then it just continued on as we went on with the lifestyle. And it's normally a big red flag when we.
Yeah, I
when
can't
we
see
see
that
it.
being very prevalent in a lot of the different types of communities, simply because I don't think a lot of the other men would accept that. A lot of the other women, like, so I'm going to play with you, but you restrict your partner. So how do
Right.
you view me having sex with you and then going back to my husband? So you're denigrating me by choosing that for your wife in a sense.
Yeah.
They normally don't last very long. Those
No.
those
No,
types
I
of people.
can't imagine they would.
No.
Yeah, they get shunned from the community pretty quick. But
Yeah.
Like I said,
they,
I think that's a pornographic
Yes.
idea of swinging. It's not a reality.
yeah,
of
it's
swinging.
unrealistic expectations for sure. Now, if Ashley Madison didn't exist, what do you think the landscape of secret desires and discrete connections would look like today?
Well, you have to go back to the origin story of Ashley Madison. So our founder in the early aughts was reading about, the rise of traditional online dating, and, the eHarmonies and matches were taking off and they were gaining a lot of traction and making money. And he read a report that suggested up to 30% of the profiles were in fact married people pretending to be single. So that's the proverbial light bulb moment that said, well, why don't I create a place where two married people could be way more honest with each other and cheat? So, I mean, it's a bit of an ironic statement, but that was really what set off Ashley Madison on its path to success. So what would happen if we didn't exist? People would just start going back to that. And in reality, our biggest competition is not other dating apps, it's the office space, as we saw recently with the Coldplay concert.
Right.
That is where you spend the vast majority of your time, 40, 50, 60 hours a week. And this idea of my work wife or my work husband, there's a reality to why that is. And you adding, work travel and holiday parties and all those things and a couple of drinks, and office affairs happen far more often, I think, than we want to believe. And that's my biggest competition. And we will always say office affairs are not safe for work because you're risking, yes, your marriage, but also you're risking your career, because companies don't want that in the office whatsoever.
Causes drama.
It causes
It
drama.
causes drama.
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
Yeah, that's pretty fascinating. Where do you see Ashley Madison in the next decade? Is it still going to be a niche platform, or do you think it's going to be part of a bigger cultural conversation about relationship diversity?
Well, it's interesting. While we are niche in a lot of senses, there's parts of us from a cultural relevancy standpoint that exceed the size of the organization. And what I mean by that, there is a Simpsons episode based on Ashley Madison.
Yes,
Marge signs up. Yeah, Marge signs up at sassymadison.com to go cheat on Homer. And I say that with a bit of a, tongue in cheek, but The Simpsons really is a mirror on society. And we've been in movies, we've been in TV shows. I think the next evolution, I think I talked a little bit about earlier, is really going to be reflective of the broadening scope of what non-monogamy means to different people under the lens of discretion. Because at the end of the day, I think the reason we've been successful is not our fun marketing. I think that was helpful getting us aware that we were out there, but the longevity was based on the discretion we offer. And I think increasingly people are going to fatigue from the online life, particularly the false online life where we have to live these perfect lives. And we're seeking out experiences and people that are more authentic, that are more real, that deliver on my particular needs, and they are unique to me, that I don't really particularly want the rest of the world to know about. And again, not from a sense of shame, but just out of a sense of, it's my business. Why would I tell you everything about, like, if my grandfather was still alive and I tried to explain to him how we share every single facet of our lives online so the whole world could see it, he would be mind boggled by that, I think. And I think we're going to slowly evolve to address more people who are interested in a lot of different things under a broader banner of non-monogamy, but predicated on the idea of discretion. What I do and with whom is my business and nobody else's.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
That's
I
a
get
really
that.
good point.
There's obviously a lot of misconception about Ashley Madison. If you could clear up one misconception forever, regarding Ashley Madison, what would it be?
So the biggest criticism we get or negative feedback is there's no women on the site. And that comes from the idea, and again,
I've
I
heard
say
that a
this
lot, actually. Yeah.
yeah, because it comes from a misogynistic viewpoint. One, I sign up, I go on, and I'm like, hey, hot chick, come sleep with me tonight. And this is not a hookup site. No woman is going to sleep with you. If you sign up Thursday morning, you're not going to have sex Thursday night. That's not how this works. It's not that women aren't there looking for sex. In fact, they actually are. But one, and men, like, trust me when I tell you got to get this in your head. No man has ever wondered, am I going to come home alive from this date tonight? Every woman thinks
Oh,
about
yeah.
that before a first date.
Yep.
Every single woman does. It is a thought they have to have. It's sad, it's unfortunate, but there are women on the site. But just like every other traditional dating site, you've got to have a conversation. You have to build a rapport. You have to build a connection. And then you have to determine, are they looking for the same thing? So even on a sexual level, is what you're looking for what she's looking for? It's not just have sex. There's particular types of sex that these women usually are looking for. And if you're not into her space, she's not going to be into you, no matter how amazing you are. And just to, end that point on the female side, because people are not going to trust me. I'm biased. I work for the company. I get paid to have these conversations. We actually hired the big global auditing firm, Ernst & Young, to come audit our membership one year. And when they looked at it, and this is a public report that anybody can download off our website, they saw that in the full year that they looked at, there was 1.13 active females for every one paid active male account.
Oh,
Wow.
wow.
That is an
They
interesting
just weren't having
statistic.
conversations.
Wow.
That's it.
In some of the Latin countries, it was 2-to-1 females to males.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, I could see that too, actually. Yeah.
Absolutely. Listen, we do really, really well, other than what I noted about France. If the more Catholic the country is, generally speaking, the better we do, because there's so much repression, there's so much shame, and generally speaking, it's a lot more misogynistic. And the more women have bad sex, the more they're going to sign up in Ashley Madison. So men, if you want my site to go away, if you're morally outraged about my business, go be a better lover, and my business won't need to
There
exist.
you go.
I can take that actually to a new level, because we're Hispanic, but when we entered the lifestyle and when we started exploring the community aspect of it, and we became poly and we started dating others, we realized that there are not a whole lot of Hispanics that are out in the open with this sort of thing. And a lot of it derives to their religion and their culture.
Think about this. Adultery is the only sin that's mentioned twice in the 10 Commandments. That's how much that religion shames it.
Yeah.
Like murder only gets there once, but adultery's in there twice.
Yeah.
Fun fact, I was actually in the Catholic seminary when I was
Yes.
in my early 20s. So there you go.
Life is a journey, and all paths lead to different places, my friend.
That's
right.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
That's right.
So what's the funniest, unexpected reaction you've ever gotten when someone found out that you worked for Ashley Madison?
I did have to tell this story delicately so that I don't expose anybody. Someone who was very close to me and important in my life, when I took the job, their best friend said, "Oh my God, you're not going to believe this. I'm on the site, or I was on the site, and I had an affair with this doctor, and this person came to me and told me the story." I went, and the person who was, confessing their sins, as it were, never would have believed it in a million years. Like, you just it was the picture of pure happiness, marital bliss, and all these good things that I'm like, holy shit, you've got to be kidding me. And that was really, really early on. So I think that part was probably the most
Unexpected.
eye-opening. I don't know anybody personally who's used the site directly. No one's come and confessed me. I'm not saying that none of my friends have or haven't. I'm just saying none of them have confessed to me. And I've told them all, if you do not tell me. I don't want to know. I don't want to know about your lives. Just keep it on the down low.
None of my business.
Because I'm like, the more I know, it has so much in my brain. I said, I can't deal with you guys.
Yeah.
Being on the site. So just don't tell me anything.
Yeah.
Just keep it to yourself.
We get that a lot from our vanilla friends. They're like, we don't want to know about your podcast. We know, we support it, we share it, but
Although some of them actually listen. So Yeah, that was
I
kind of
think
cool.
the only other thing that was interesting is I think my kid came to me because I have two boys. I have two teenage sons.
Mhm.
And so you can imagine being the dad who's on TV, does podcasts talking about all sorts of crazy stuff. I got to have a lot of unique conversations with my kids about this stuff all the time. And the funniest one, I drive my sons into school every morning when they're with me. And my oldest boy, a couple of his friends, hitch a ride with me. And my oldest boy came to me one day. I'm not sure if you saw, there's a big documentary on Hulu that I'm in.
Yeah, we saw it.
And my son said, "Oh yeah, my friend saw you on that." I said, "Oh, interesting." And when did he say something about it? He goes, "Yeah, he doesn't believe you have that real title." I said, "So of all the things that I've said and done, he just doesn't think that I have a cool title." I'm like, because he just doesn't think I'm, because I wake up and my, my tank top and shorts and flip flops, driving kids to school, doing the bus run. And he just doesn't think I'm cool enough to have a title like this. And I'm like, that's his criticism. That's the feedback I get. God, I love you kids.
I mean, they're in a different area, right? In their brains right now.
Completely.
It's just,
I
yeah.
mean, listen, God love my children. Having me as their dad, that's tough. That's not easy. And my oldest boy, he's dating, and I'm like, oh, like how do you deal with that? Like, how do you tell your girlfriend, oh, by the way, my dad works for Ashley Madison.
Paul,
So
our kids tell their friends that we have a sex podcast.
Yeah, and we have five. We have five.
We
kids.
have 5 kids, and our youngest are just starting high school.
God bless you.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
So they're aware of our lifestyle. The younger ones, the ones that are just in high school, they don't ask questions and they don't really want to know, but then they do every now and then go, "I want to listen to your podcast." I'm like, "No, you don't.
No.
You don't want to hear this."
No, you don't.
Our older kids know, and they actually are really cool about it. But we've always had a very open communication in our household.
Which is great.
We remove all stigma from sex and that sort of thing. You should be able to talk to your family about some of the most innermost things that nobody's really
We
comfortable.
talked about it. It's funny. I'm a father of 2 sons. Some of my friends are fathers of daughters, and I said to them, like, "Don't you want your daughters to have great sex lives?" And they're like, "This is getting uncomfortable." I said, "Don't you want your daughter to do the same things you and your wife do?" And they're like, "Absolutely not." I said, "Then why are you doing that to your wife?"
Yeah.
And they're like, "We don't like you anymore. Stop coming golfing with us."
Oh, we have
But
boys.
there's a-
So yeah.
But this is the point, right? If you want your kid, like, no, you're not showing them a video of your sex tapes. Like, that's not happening.
Yeah.
But having conversations with your kids about sex and sexuality and all these things is really important. And it's one thing I love about my son's generation, because I so remember my oldest boy coming home in grade, I think it was 6, so he's about 12 years old. And he said, he comes to the door and you're like, always, "How was your day?" "So I had a good day. So-and-so came out as bi to me today." And you're like, "Oh, interesting." So like, here's your son's opening up to you. So you got to go with it. And you're like, "Oh, what'd you think about that?" Yeah, whatever. I don't care. It's just really, it's great. Whatever. We're just moving on. We're going to go play basketball, Dad. And what I loved about that little dynamic was, he's in a world where a boy at 12 years old felt confident and comfortable enough to express that to another male. In my age, there's no way that happens. Like, that's just
Right.
unimaginable, because the amount of abuse that poor child would have taken.
Mhm.
And 2, the level of disinterest my kid had in it, meaning he's my friend. That's his business, not mine. I don't care, but it's cool that he said it to me. And now we're going to play basketball. Like, that gives me such hope for the future, because, like I said, in my generation, that's just not something that happens. And I know it's still like, the gay kid is getting punished and beat up in school. That's still happening, but we're getting further and further away from that. And I love how this upcoming generation is changing the sexual dynamics and the judgments that so much have infected our relationships.
Now, on a personal level, what have you learned about yourself working in a space that doesn't reflect your own relationship style?
The things, it's funny. I think, we're obviously the world's largest married dating app, and 85 million plus members and all that fun stuff. But the flip side of that is that we are also the world's largest marriage counseling service, because if you don't want your partner to cheat on you, listen to me as to why that happens, why women are doing that, why men are doing that. And I explain it. So it's really informed so much of now, I rejoined the dating scene about 3 years ago. And it really informed so much of the kinds of conversations I was having and how I was approaching people. to express what it was I'm looking for in a relationship. I feel so much more comfortable expressing my thoughts, interests, and needs because I know it just leads to better outcomes. And sometimes it takes some of the women I'm on dates by a bit by surprise. And again, I'm not pulling out the Kama Sutra on date one. That's not what I'm talking about. But expressing a level of intimacy of thought that is far beyond do you want to live in the burbs or live in the main city? I can express myself with a lot more confidence because I know it leads to such better outcomes. And I've had such amazing relationships over this period of time. It's been fascinating. And I've met and dated people who are in the community. Myself, I'm not, but I did date people who are. And it was fascinating to have those conversations and meet their partners and better understand the lifestyle they were living.
That's
Right
awesome.
on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
congratulations. It is growth, right? Either way, it's growth.
Either way, it's growth. That's what counts.
Yeah, listen,
This
I have a
is
great friend who's just coming back on the dating scene after 30 years of monogamy, and it's a whole new world for him. And I'm literally coaching him through it. And I said to him, like, it's so different from our 20s. And this is a guy I've known since I was like 5 years old, and it's so amazing out there. And I think he's going to have such a better time because he's coming at it with the right mindset after a lot of the conversations. Not that I'm trying to pat myself on the back here, but I think he's opened up his mind to what it used to be to what it is now, and knows that he can get so much more out of it by being expressive.
Mhm. That's very true. That's good. Yeah. So this is going to be the last one right here. If your job had a tagline that wasn't "life is short, have an affair," what would your version of the tagline be?
Well, we did have a different one, and I loved it
Okay.
because it works so well. So I'm going to steal it. And the reason we don't use it is it's just really hard to say. When monogamy becomes monotony.
Oh, I like that
That's actually a really good one.
because it does become that.
Well, it can become
It
that
can
if you
become
allow it.
Alleged.
Can become, and it does because people don't converse. They don't talk about things. And we work a marriage and sex therapist by the name of Dr. Tammy Nelson. Love her. She's brilliant. You should look her up and have her on the show.
I'm going
She's
to.
really she's written a book about open marriages. She holds relationship retreats all on this subject matter. And she comes at it obviously from a very different perspective. Now, number one, she'll never do an interview and say, "Oh my God, yes, I work with Ashley Madison, and I think everybody should have an affair." No, that's not what she does. She explains that she gives you understanding and context and nuance and all those things. But one of the things she does with her clients or patients, she counsels them to have what she calls a 5-year monogamy contract, a renewable 5-year monogamy contract, so that every 5 years you're sitting down and saying, "What does monogamy mean to me now?" And it's not a release valve to get out of jail and go sleep with a bunch of other people. No, it's a reflection on the fact that at 30, 40, 50, we are very different people. Our needs are different, our wants are different. And it's not just from an intimacy or sex perspective, from a full spectrum of relationship perspective. And in forcing that conversation, like personally, I would say, I would hope you would do it more than once every 5 years, but I understand most people aren't doing it at all. So this is a starting point for a lot of people. And I think it's a brilliant concept.
That is brilliant.
For sure.
I'm gonna have to look her up because that's
we're gonna have to give her a call, actually. Yeah.
Love her. She's so amazing.
That's awesome. Paul, this has been such a great conversation. I got to tell you, thank you very much for giving us an inside look into Ashley Madison and also sharing your personal perspective on how people are really connecting out there.
It was fun.
My pleasure.
Yeah, so we appreciate you
you.
being open and helping us peel back that stereotype. So thank you very much.
Anytime, guys. Loved it so much.
Yeah, and for everyone listening, remember this lifestyle is about honesty and communication. We don't support cheating, but we do love having real conversations about desire, connection, and how people find their own path.
Exactly. So Paul, thank you again for joining us. And to our listeners, stick around because Adam and I have plenty more episodes where we keep it real raw and a little bit sexy.
That's right. With that being said, don't forget our loyal listeners and first-time listeners, Beyond Monogamy with Adam and Pris can be found on all major platforms where you stream your podcasts, as well as YouTube.
Yep. So stay tuned. And of course, you can find us on fullswapradio.com on Thursdays at either 1 or 6 p.m. Central.
And be sure to subscribe and share with your friends and community. And please take a moment, if you've enjoyed our show, leave us a review because it can really help us out a lot. And if worded just right, we may even read it on a future show. Hey, hit us with your best shot. You can review us on all major platforms or at our site at www.beyond-monogamy.com. And with that, we will see you guys next week.
Bye.